The statistics don't lie. The continent with the oldest ancestors known to man is a young continent. 70% of Africans are under the age of 30. More than 40% of sub-Saharan Africans are under 15. And this is the communication generation. They talk to each other on the internet, through music and film, over the radio and in person. These young people are starting to find their voice. They are starting to find a political voice. The youth are overthrowing governments that don't listen to them. When politicians are listening, they are hearing a generation that wants to make policy, hold their leaders accountable, stop bad laws, and be included in the conversation. Young people want to promote education, protect their rights, innovate, and promote peace and build togetherness. Let's take a trip around the continent and see this new generation in action, communicating, building, and creating an agenda for the future. Tunisia, 2010. Young people communicating using new technology caused a revolution that would engulf much of North Africa and stretch to the Middle East.
الناس في الخارج يخافون الظلم بن علي ويخافون كلاب حراسة بن علي. حتى في الاجتماع كما أسلف الصلاح، يعني حتى في الاجتماعات كنا نعجز أن نحن نتحاور ونتحدث بكل أريحية. يعني سقوط نظام الطاغية بن علي هو يعني حرية التعبير، هو يعني حرية الصحافة، هو يعني حرية الإعلام، هو يعني العمل في الجانب الحقوقي. كان الشباب الذي لم يناهز سنهم 25 سنة كانوا يجتمعون في هذا المكان للتخطيط كيف يواجهون هذا القمع.
كان الشعب التونسي كله ما يتوقعش ثورة، ما كانش حتى حد يتوقع اللي باش يجي نهار ويتنحى بن علي رغم وجود نضالات وتراكمات كثيرة.
الفيسبوك الذي ساهم بدرجة كبيرة في إسقاط هذا النظام أو حتى إسقاط بعض الأنظمة في خارج تونس. يعني الفيسبوك من خلال المجموعات السرية الموجودة داخل الفيسبوك أو من خلال بعض الصفحات التي ساهمت في الدعوة إلى الخروج عن الصمت، إلى الخروج في الساحات، إلى رفض نظام بن علي.
L'image qui reste gravée dans notre mémoire, c'est l'image de 150 000 de peuples tunisiens qui ont sorti rue de Habib Bourguiba.
مئات من الطلبة في كلية العلوم بنزرت وهبطنا وترفعت علينا القنطرة، ما خلوناش نتعدوا ونهبطوا للسانترفيل. وركح فينا الغاز والمتراك ونساء ورجال تعيط صايي بن علي ديجاج. يعني كان مشهد غريب يعني، وحتى يعني لاحظنا حتى تعاطف يعني بعض رجال الامن يعني هبطوا ايديهم ما عادش يضربوا يعني، وكيف كيف يعني المشهد.
عادت هذه المنظمة إلى النشاط. يعني بالنسبة في زمن بن علي كان هو زمن الرجل الواحد وزمن الحزب الواحد وزمن التفكير بالشكل الواحد وبالمنهج الواحد. الحمد لله اليوم في الواقع التونسي على الأقل على المستوى السياسي هناك هامش من الحريات، هناك هامش من الديمقراطية الذي يخول الجميع ممارسة حقوقهم، على الأقل الإحساس بأن مواطنين من درجة أولى وليس من درجة ثانية.
Not far along the Mediterranean coast, another youth-led revolution was brewing. In the shadows of 5,000-year-old relics, 20-year-olds were pushing Africa's oldest nation towards its first change in government in 4 decades.
The youth started challenging the regime since 2008 and started working with blogs and online and Facebook pages and through YouTube, because All the violations, all the torture, everything that was happening was immediately put on video and uploaded immediately, and everyone would see it. Our local media is completely corrupt, the state media to the bone, so it showed nothing. It was just filming footage of the Nile, while people were killed on the street. Connectivity and communication is the most important tool in a revolution or in an uprising or any change. The Facebook page that they did, the activists, caught a lot of people's attentions, including myself. When they announced the day to go down on 25th against police brutality, I was really excited. I wanted to take part. I went down very afraid, but with my friends, I was encouraged. And when I found myself for the first time in the middle of hundreds and then thousands of people chanting and screaming and with anti-government slogans about freedom and social justice, it made me feel so empowered. We broke into Tahrir Square, and that gave us an even greater sense of accomplishment and confidence and courage to go on. There was this sense of power amongst those 50 or 60,000 on the first day. But then they started attacking us, and we started running away as soon as we heard the gunshots. I was unlucky. I still got shot. I didn't have enough time to turn around, so I was penetrated by 23 pellets.
Saif worked as a doctor until there was a surplus of medical workers during the uprising.
I started realizing a biggest threat than any disease I know, which is the diseased media, that was saying all kinds of bad propaganda about us in Tahrir and in all squares around Egypt that we're traitors. Everyone needs to know that they're using live ammunition, there are people dying, the injuries, what they're like. And we started this group of youth from Tahrir, a satellite channel, presented and represented by youth.
اسمي سيف طبيب للشعب ل200 في الشهر.
We had a good reach, but the kind of television is not the kind that's sustainable by advertising. So sadly, after a year and a half, we had to shut down because we couldn't afford it anymore.
Just as the revolution brought about personal change for Saif, so women in Egypt are campaigning against violent assaults, which have increased since the uprising began.
While the road to recognizing change was a rough one in Egypt, Senegal's generational change followed a happier tune. Macky Sall became the nation's first leader born after independence, and he did so with the help of young supporters who used popular music to effect popular change.
Since independence in 1960, Senegal has enjoyed relative political stability with successful transitions of power from the leadership of Léopold Senghor to Abdou Diouf to Abdoulaye Wade without any incidents of military rule. This is indeed a notable achievement for Senegal when considering the history of military coups within the West African region. The transition of power from Abdoulaye Wade to Macky Sall in 2012 showed the maturity of Senegal's democratic tradition as well as the collective strength and leadership of the youth in the country. In the run-up to the presidential elections, public dissent began mounting in 2011 when Abdoulaye Wade sponsored a bill to have the Senegalese constitution amended, firstly to have a lower threshold of 25% of the votes for the president to be re-elected into office, and secondly, to introduce a clause enabling the president to have a running mate, which many observers believed at the time would pave the way for Abdoulaye Wade to be succeeded by his son. On June 23, 2011, the youths from Mouvement du Ventre Joie and the Yanama movement, in conjunction with youth from the opposing political parties, organized a demonstration in front of the National Assembly to prevent the bill proposed by Abdoulaye Wade from being passed by members of the parliament. The protest was so unprecedented and attracted a massive number of people who collectively demanded that the National Assembly uphold the tenets of the Senegalese constitution. The demonstrations intensified, with notable clashes between the youth and security forces.
They're speaking up for the same thing that youth around the world have been speaking up for. We're tired of having difficulty finding jobs, not being supported on our rights for education, healthcare. Poverty is too much. What are we going to do when we graduate from school? Are there going to be jobs for us? Why are we still suffering from poverty when, like we see very well that the possibility of everybody being able to subsist and live together and have more and eat well, study well, be healthy. It's there, the possibilities are there, but it's not being administered properly.
While Senegalese took to the streets to demand a change of political leadership, young Nigerians got out to try change government policy. January of 2012 saw the start of the Occupy Nigeria movement, in reaction to the removal of fuel subsidies by the government of Goodluck Jonathan.
Social media was very important in mobilizing people, and you could sit down in your house and be connected with 7 million other Nigerians simply via your phone, via your computer, and they pass ideas across. And these ideas are common to each and every Nigerian, so it's easy enough to get people on the same page.
The success of that movement was the fact that the people by themselves said enough was enough and they came out. So it wasn't about me, it wasn't about some organizers. It was not the job of activists. It was the job of Nigerians becoming active citizens.
Nigeria could use more organizations that channel their young people's frustrations and ideas into streams of positive dialogue. Liberia. 2 peaceful elections have seen Africa's first female head of state, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, take the reins with significant support from the youth. The young voices are not necessarily set to music. They are being delivered via the radio.
This is Liberia, a country trying to get on its feet 10 years after a brutal civil war. I can recall men being put in the swamp water and asked to put their heads at the edge of the water to be cut off.
The war road.
My dad was just lucky at the time to have survived that. After the war, I realized that I have rights, and I became interested in the way through radio, young people like me can voice those rights. At least 60% of the population here is under 35, and the issues facing young people are enormous. Child rape, teenage pregnancy are common. Unemployment is high, and too many kids work instead of being in school. Here at the University of Liberia, I'm finding out what is on the minds of young people and recording their thoughts.
Our politicians are fighting poverty with capitalist interests. If you fight poverty with capitalist interests, you will subject your people to living in slums and ghetto and abject poverty and misery. Today, the politicians in the country are not sincere. That's the reason why Liberians today lives are destituted, and we are in the dangling disco of political economic enigma.
The gap between the have and the have-not is very wide. The university is a political habit where students passionately discuss and debate. But sometimes their voices stay on the campus. That is why I bring the policymaker to the table, where the views of these young people can be heard.
The objective of the plan.
Today we're talking about youth involvement with politics.
The program is broadcast live in every county in Liberia at 2 p.m. every Tuesday. Young people interested in politics from what you talk about. I want people to listen to what young people have to say. I want them to take action. I want them to take immediate action. I get annoyed when they're just hearing it and not taking action. they want to go to school. They want to live a life like any other child around the world or a young person around the world can live. They're anxious to be heard. They want people to give them a space to talk. They want to be a part of the process. They want to say, because this is something affecting us, we are the one can do it. They want to see themselves being the one that can drive that change.
We're making progress, steady progress toward having a government whose glasses will be youth sensitive, or whose jacket will be a youth jacket. You know, we're not far from getting there. Looking at the issues and the sentiments from the youth hyperloop right now, I think we're very close to a system where the young people themselves will take power. We're working toward that.
A little over 2,000 kilometers down the West African coast, one arrives in Ghana. Recent elections here were also peaceful as John Dramani Mahama was elevated to the country's top post. But the youth are determined to make their new leader accountable to their agenda.
The project we are working on, Voice of Youth, is to give our young people a voice. Young people by young people for young people.
We are not going to sit down for people to tell us what they want to do for us, but then we are going to ask them to do what we want for us. We would like to take recommendations and then input on which aspect of society would you want to make a recommendation about into the Youth Manifesto.
Youth is ranging from 15 years to 35. People just ignore the teenagers.
How many schools do we have that integrate disabled people, visually impaired, audibly impaired into the whole educational system?
I'm very happy that our voices are going to be heard so that our problems and our worries can all be solved so as to improve on development.
With the use of radio in the Youth Manifesto coalition process, it's actually helped us to get more input from people.
Good afternoon, listeners. I'm your host, Naode Aite, and the time is 4 p.m. Today, we have in our midst our team who are on the field gathering the data for the Youth Manifesto.
It was a good experience out there, actually. I had fun on my part talking to young people.
So what are some of the surprises you had on the field?
When we asked young people the kind of policies they wanted to have implemented, they were so much concerned about their brothers who are disabled.
03029800097. You can phone in and contribute.
Hello, good afternoon.
So what is your contribution?
Education sector in this country now is not helping us very well. The youth, most of them will be on the streets, and the government should provide quality education for us. Buildings, good schools, ICT, and a library for us.
If people are out there, if the ministers are listening, if the assemblymen are listening, they should take this up before even the launching of the Youth Manifesto, because this is what we, the youth, are saying. We've been pushed around for too long.
I hope, like my brother said earlier, now the decision makers are listening and they have to do something about it.
My time is up. We'll come your way next week with another edition of this program.
Over in East Africa, we find the youth of Rwanda embracing a progressive government that is leaving behind the 2-decade-old memories of genocide for an economy led by tourism and services. And with 50% female representation required in the legislature, girl power is the law.
Our laws here prohibit us from giving people work or responsibility without ensuring gender representation, because 30% in every decision-making organ at any level in the country, from the lowest to highest, has to have minimum of 30% women representation. And this is fraud, like it's the law, it's like the Bible.
There's also a high number of women leaders in government. That already is a huge thing. You see that it's not just men, it's women as well. It's encouraging, it's inspiring. You feel represented in government.
It is a lesson that the youth here would like to see passed on to many of their African neighbors. In Mozambique, there are still hurdles created by society that present young women with mean challenges. But some are fighting for their new roles and rights to fulfill their own dreams.
Eu tive uma amiga que engravidou de professor na escola. Simplesmente o professor ficou impune, porque não havia nenhuma, naquela altura, não tinha nenhuma lei que ia defender aquela miúda. A miúda teve que parar de estudar, isso me motivou. Eu disse, eu posso mostrar a elas que elas têm direito de escolher, elas se equimandam na sua própria vida.
Suzette is president of the Assembly of Mozambican Secondary School Students.
Temos que lembrar para elas que elas têm direito, mas aí nós temos que pedir para elas para que se empenhem pessoalmente nas suas notas, que possam ter boas notas, que é para evitar essas coisas que quando chega o final do ano começa ali a haver o abuso sexual, o assédio, o troca de favor entre alunas e professores. Mas eu quero que nós esse ano nos empenhemos muito mais em fazer palestras. Muitas das vezes os estudantes não têm nenhum interesse em querer participar nas palestras. Então, isso deve haver uma motivação muito grande do nosso lado. Nós temos que ter aquela paciência de podermos nos acalmar. Em termos de direitos da mulher, aqui no nosso país tem um hábito muito sério. Em certas cidades, nós não podemos estudar porque temos que nos casar, ficar em casa, cuidar dos nossos maridos, do nosso lar. Mas eu acho que não devia ser assim, porque nós também queremos estudar, queremos ter um trabalho. Qual é a tua opinião? Não são respeitados, daí que os pais usam-nos como objetos de droga, usam-nos para conseguir mais dinheiro, trocam-nos bem para homens mais velhos. A esses casamentos, dizem que é casamento infantil, mas para mim não é casamento infantil, é união forçada. Temos que lutar por basta nessas coisas. É tudo. Obrigada.
One of the scholars who has already attended a women's rights workshop is Carolina. Suzette is keen to know how she's faring.
A partir do momento que eu fui à palestra, consegui exercer, consegui conversar com os meus pais, dizer que eu tinha o direito de escolher o que eu queria, de escolher se eu queria casar ou não, ou se com quem eu queria casar e tudo. Tendo em conta que eu sou filha de pais tradicionais.
Egas, qual é que foi tua reação no primeiro momento quando Carolina trouxe essa informação?
Eu aprendi muito, não só pelos direitos da mulher, mas também pelos direitos, pelos deveres dos homens também. Aprendi que ela tinha que escolher seus próprios caminhos, seus próprios desafios. Oi. Vocês estão descansados? Antes eu não lavava louça, dizia que para homem não lavava louça, mas agora eu lavo a louça, cozinho às vezes quando ela não está. Quer dizer, isso para mim foi uma apreensão, porque aprendi que poderia fazer o que certas mulheres faziam.
Zipping across to East Africa, we find Kenyan youth bent on correcting past mistakes. A peaceful election last year has young people leaving the lives of crime for more productive endeavors.
Welcome to Nairobi. Welcome to Mathare, a place that is popularly known as a slum. Where do I begin? If I told you my story, you might laugh, you might cry, or you might not believe me.
It's like to become a criminal is as if it's a must, because you see your friends are criminals, they are being respected.
Look around and you can understand why. Garbage, open sewers, crime, prostitution, this is what we have. I